everyone.
Good morning.
The Rambam says that a person should always find a middle path in life. You don't go to either extreme. He calls it the Shvil HaZahav, the golden path. However, he says there are two traits that a person should not take the middle path, but should go to an extreme. What are the two traits? One is pride, that a person should not be prideful at all. They should be exceedingly humble. As we just said in the Shemona Esrei, V'nafshi ka'afal hakol tiyah, my soul should be like dust before every person. And the second one is anger. He says a person should never be angry. A person should go to the extreme to never get angry. And we know that anger is one letter away from danger. If you put a D before anger, you have danger. Terrible things can happen when a person gets angry. Because as someone once said, anger is thinking fast when we really should be thinking slow. At those pivotal moments where we should think very carefully, we act really quick and fast and do things that are impulsive. We get angry, and usually anger doesn't help anything. It just makes things a lot worse. So therefore, anger is something you should avoid at all costs. But Rabbi Jonathan Sachs makes a brilliant observation. He says, there are two times in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu gets angry. One is in this week's Parsha, when he sees the Jews worshipping the golden calf. He says, Vayicharap Moshe. Moshe gets angry, and he throws the tablets down and smashes them. The second time, we all know, was when God told him to speak to the rock, and the rock will produce water. Moshe got angry. He said, listen up, you rebels, Shimon Amom. He took the stick and he struck the rock in anger, and the water came forth. But let's look at God's reactions to these two moments of outbursts of Moshe from Moshe Rabbeinu. In this week's parsha, when he breaks the tablets, our rabbis say that not only doesn't God condemn him or reprimand him for it, God compliments him. As our rabbis tell us that the last words of the Torah, La'enei Kol Yisrael, the great act that Moshe did before the eyes of Israel, refers to the breaking of the tablets. That the fact that he broke the tablets was one of his greatest deeds, if not the greatest deed he did. And therefore God told him, write another set of tablets from the ones Asher Shibarta Yashakoach. I compliment you that you broke the tablets. So for getting angry and smashing the tablets, he gets a Yashakoach, a thank you. But for hitting a rock, he's told he can't go to the land of Israel, he has to die in the desert, even though he prays 515 prayers. What's going on? You would think that hitting a rock is nothing. Smashing tablets out of anger is much worse. Why? For this he gets a praise, and for this he gets a punishment. And Rabbi Sachs says the following. Maimonides says, and it's brought down in Jewish law, there's one time you're allowed to get angry. You know when? When you want to teach your children or teach someone something, and in order to communicate the message, you have to act like you're angry. But the Jewish law says internally you have to be calm. But externally you can act angry to teach the kid a message. We could all relate to the fact that when a kid runs into the street, when our children run in the street, we scream at them, don't ever run in the street. Why? Because we want to impress them, this is dangerous. So inside you have to be calm, but outside you could be angry to influence and impact and jolt the child. It's like, God forbid, when someone has a heart attack, they need a defibrillator, right? It gives them a shock and it wakes them up. But the person who's administering the shock doesn't feel the shock. Just the person needs the shock to wake up. You could give somebody a shock of anger if it's necessary, but you should not feel the shock. You should not feel angry. You can act angry. So Rabbi Sachs says, this is perhaps the explanation. With the hitting of the rock, Moshe really got angry. He lost his temper. So God says, you're not fit to be the leader of the people, because you can't teach anyone anything through anger. With the smashing of the tablets, not that Moshe got angry. Because later in Deuteronomy it says, Moshe says, I clutched it and then I threw it. It was a deliberate act to be angry. Why? Because he realized they were so engulfed in this idolatry, dancing, they've lost their way, that he needed to awaken them and say, what are you doing? You're serving an idol after God gave you the Torah? He needed to do something dramatic and drastic, and so he, in an act of anger, he threw down the tablets, but it wasn't like he was truly angry, he was merely trying to arouse them and to awaken them. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us, and what the Torah teaches us, that anger is never permissible. A person should always be calm, and that's why the Talmud says that if you get angry, it's like you served idols, because if you have true faith in God, you don't get angry, you trust in Hashem. Conclude with a story that there was once this child psychologist. He wrote many books about child psychology, and one day he had someone pour fresh cement on the front of his house. And as it was drying, some kids came along and started making their initials and smiley faces. He came out, he starts yelling and screaming at the kids, "Get out of here, what are you doing?" He has a temper tantrum. When he comes in, his wife says, "I don't understand. You've written so many books about child psychology, and you have so many chapters about how to talk to a child. You have to talk calmly, respectfully. You have to look them in the eyes. You have to bend down so you speak face to face. And all of a sudden you're yelling and screaming at these kids. What happened to all of your ideas in your books about talking calmly to kids?" And he looked at his wife and he said, "I practice child psychology in theory, in the abstract, but not in the concrete. So these lessons have to be applied day to day. If someone gets you annoyed, someone gets you angry, always remain calm and have trust in Hashem."